Welcome to this week's episode of Play PSVR2, the podcast, the one and only. I am your host, Adam, but I'm not alone. I'm with the only man I know who wipes front to back. That is my co-host, Alex. Are you ready to talk about some PSVR2 tonight?
How do you wipe, Adam?
Back to, yeah. Oh, wait, what? Oh, no, wait, do you?
We're getting too personal here on the podcast. Adam, I'm feeling good. I finished the game.
You're right. You
Yeah.
did normally. Holy crap.
That's why you have so many UTIs, Adam.
Should we go ahead and redo the beginning so I can say
Absolutely
back
not.
front?
Nope, everybody knows what you do now, Adam. You're
Dang
stuck
it.
with it. The
I
truth is
thought
out
that
there.
was good. I was thinking, never mind, that's too much info. But to get off this, we're really treading on some dangerous ground. I have always asked for Avery's Bug Barf. And it's pineapple. It's my gamer juice, of course. A weekly tradition, a staple on Play PSVR.
Bug barf.
Bug barf.
It's just going to taste like pineapple juice?
Pretty pineapple, yes.
I think that's going to help out with your UTI. I'm glad you're taking care of yourself.
That and cranberry juice. I do cranberry enemas at least twice a week.
Enemas? That doesn't help with your UTI.
Oh, then the doctor lied to me. I mean, I found him at I was testing my DualSense controller in the back of Wendy's by their dumpster, and I saw him, and we had a conversation. He told me that's what I should do. This tastes pretty good. The thing is, it's all these sodas, like the past couple I've had, Gamer Goop, Bug Barf, they're like totally gross soda, but they're good. Like that, I bought it because I thought it was gonna suck. So a bit misleading. Their marketing teams, I should sue, but whatever, I won't because I am too happy tonight. What are you drinking? I'm sure. Do you still have COVID?
I'm pretty much done with it. Yeah, I might be mildly contagious or something. We don't have the come and go here, so I'm at just a sudden service convenience store. We got a Diet Dr. Pepper here helping me out. But my gamer juice tonight is Gatorade Zero with protein. I don't know how that's going to affect the flavor of Gatorade. The fact that it's protein makes me think it's going to be like chunky, almost like a protein shake.
Yeah,
it's blue. That's the best Gatorade flavor.
I like how you got Gatorade and a big gulp.
Oh yeah, and I had a Red Bull too.
Oh my gosh,
this is how I survive. Yeah.
You're gonna be peeing out your butthole here pretty soon.
I'm trying to peeing out my butthole. Maybe that's why you have the UTI. Okay.
Oh, should you not do? Oh, see, I'm just learning all types of things right off the bat. But you're gonna learn something, Alex. You're gonna learn something right here, right now, because gaming is in session, and we need to talk about Runner. It is on the stand. And the Honorable Adam, I am the one presiding. I am the one deciding if Runner is a valid and worthy PSVR title, not just for you, Alex, but all the watchers, all the PSVR2 enthusiasts. So this game is made by Truant Pixel. And the first piece of evidence I bring into this case is the PSVR2 technology implementation. It's very important when deciding whether to play a game and if it's a worthy PSVR2 title with all these launch games out there. So, and I will admit, Runner isn't necessarily graphically stunning. It looks very good. It is very clear, but it's not a game that could really boast high resolution graphics that would really blow you away, like Kayak VR Mirage and other titles like that. But it still will certainly impress you when you take and you put your head on a swivel and you look in the environment and the chaos that is happening around you, the skies, the city, all the environments that they put you in. Then not necessarily haptics. I feel like I wouldn't consider you have sidearms, you have cannons, you have sabers, grenades, missiles. You have a lot of ways for combat. And I wouldn't say they use necessarily haptics, more of a rumble within the Sense controller, but it works exceedingly well. And it's really hard to describe unless you actually do it. But for example, when you're using your auto gun, the very basic gun that you get for your sidearm gun, it's just like a poo, 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 poo is how the rumble in the controller works. But then if you, for example, get the flak upgrade, it's like pow, 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 pow. Like you feel it. It almost feels, it's not really like a kick, but almost in a way, it's hard to describe, but it works really well. It really increases the immersion. I like that for the main gun in the motorcycle, so you have your sidearm guns that are your weapons for your hands. The sense controller rumbles there, and then for your motorcycle that you ride on, and as you're swerving and playing the game, that has a cannon that will rumble your head. That is really cool. Not many games use the rumble. You actually feel that, and that rumble changes based on the upgrades you have for your main cannon there too. So again, really increases the immersion and just makes the gameplay really fun to play. The sense controllers do work well. You use the analog sticks to swerve in and out. You can lean in person, but it doesn't move the cycle. It kind of helps you dodge things and feel part of the game, but it doesn't necessarily move the cycle by itself, which would have been nice, but it's still fine. And because I am the Honorable Adam and I am the one judging this case on the facts of all of these based on PSVR2 technology implementation, I find you, Runner, guilty.
Okay, Adam. So here's the thing: you're talking about the technology, you're talking about the fun. The leaning, I don't really care about as much because the leaning, like you're leaning on the motorcycle. Motorcycle's going one way, you want to be able to lean the other way.
Yeah, and move. Like it would be cool if when you leaned one way, the motorcycle would go, but it doesn't. But anyhow, you don't care. Okay.
Yeah, so I think that's okay. I do like that the haptics. I played a little bit of this. I like the haptics, the feeling of the guns when you're shooting it, and you're right, the extra rumble when you shoot the cannons from your motorcycle really well. Did it do anything like foveated rendering, eye tracking? Did you notice anything like that with it?
I did not, but there isn't a place for it. You know, when
Hmm.
you shoot a missile, you lock onto the missile, but then once you lock on, you're already there. And so the missile is a heat seeking missile. Your gun, obviously, when you shoot, it should go where you shoot, not where your eyes go. It would be my argument there. So there isn't, but not because they maybe didn't include it. I don't think there's really a spot for it in the game.
Okay, all right. What's the next evidence you have to present?
That's right. The next evidence, we need to consider immersion, a big factor for me. You got to be immersed in these games. And Runner is surprisingly an immersive experience. So you're very soon going to be entranced, enthralled, and engaged in this game because you are swerving in the road, trying to avoid cars while also shooting enemies from the ground, from the air. There's booby traps. You got to see where you're going, and there's certain just traps and obstacles within the road and tunnels you need to make in. And then some levels have trains, oncoming trains that are coming at you. It's a really immersive game. You almost feel, and I don't know how to describe how they do this, but clearly you are standing, you're sitting in a single spot, but when you speed up on the motorcycle, something about it, you almost feel like you're moving faster. I don't know how, and I think that's just immersion, and that's how things coming at you faster in the game. It's just good, man. It's real good. It makes me feel wonderful. Makes you feel in the game, and all of these things coming together. You have this fast-paced combat where you have to multitask simultaneously. You got these banging tunes that are in your back ear. It's almost like you're out on the wide open highway. You're just, on the California, Turnpike, and you're listening to tunes, you're living life, and all these things are trying to kill you at the same time. It's wonderful. I love it. And it's exceptionally fun gameplay. I absolutely loved it, which obviously when you're having more fun, you feel more immersed. And your mind gets tricked that you're like on a bike and you forget that you're in your living room or you're just sitting on your couch. And those games like Thumper, like Resident Evil 8, like Gran Turismo 7, when these games allow you to transport you into that world, it's a magical thing. And that's something that Runner does. And because of that, on 2 counts of immersion, I find you, Runner, guilty.
So, Adam, my biggest question about the immersion here is the graphics, because the game looks looks like a PSVR1 game. Let's be honest. Did you find that hampering your immersion in any capacity? Like, it doesn't look super realistic. It looks futuristic, but it's still a lot of polygons, a lot of flat textures. Did that seem to get in the way in terms of you feeling immersed in the game?
I don't think it did. You have to. give grace to the artistic expression of the developers, right? That's how they wanted this to look like for whatever reasons they've chosen, whether it was it's less resource intensive, maybe they wanted to focus on the gameplay, but that's how they wanted it to look like. So you accept that. And then again, with the gameplay being that exciting and that immersive, you're really, for me, I allowed it to have a lot of leeway in the graphics department because it did so well in the other parts. And we've shown that graphics don't necessarily make a good game. The gameplay does. So I didn't find that I have trouble one bit.
Okay, and then so you mentioned the immersion. The game's about going really fast, right? Riding a motorcycle. That's like a thrilling experience. It's dangerous. Did you ever feel like the thrill or the danger of riding a motorcycle quickly down a highway with other cars and stuff like that?
I don't know if I felt danger. I definitely felt, as I mentioned, that acceleration and kind of that excitement, like just a tad little bit of adrenaline rush when you speed past and you barely made it between two cars with just a little narrow passageway in between them, or some of them you gotta swipe between some of the wheels, kind of like a Christmas Vacation style. So you feel that it's really cool, but when you crash, the head rumble doesn't enact. Like it's just like, oh, you take damage. Like you don't feel like really anything happened because of that. You don't really feel danger in any way.
Okay.
But
What's your next piece of evidence, Adam?
so the game is a fine game. It's a very good game, but it's not perfect. And there were some things that really bogged me down and made this a somewhat painful experience for a first time playthrough to try, actually. And I will admit, I played the game before the invincibility mode was active. There was an update. If you purchase it, if you play it now, invincibility mode is active and it's available from the start of the game. I played it on standard mode and it was extremely difficult. Listen, I understand this is like an arcade shooter and an homage to some of the older games, and those were difficult. And you put a lot of quarters in there, and that was a way to entice you to continue playing the game. But this was so difficult. It started, I mean, that's the beauty of the game. It never really stopped being fun, but it got to be pretty annoying. One, the demo, they show you every bit of gameplay and every combat element within a 5 minute span. And they're rather complicated. Sometimes your gun has to be in the holder. You have to click certain buttons. The saber, you have to do certain things to release it and then put it away and then lock on missiles. And it's just so sudden in the demo, and then you have to remember it. And there's, I mean, obviously you can go into settings and look at the controls, but that you don't want to do mid game. And then you get caught in a hairy situation. You don't remember how to throw a grenade. That the demo wasn't great. They needed to break it up. And then there were a lot of times during the game where you needed to do something, but you didn't know. For example, there was a train level, which one of my favorite levels now. It's really cool, but there was a point where you had to shoot the back of a train carriage. And once you did that, it kind of like the train slowed down kind of for you so you could progress in the level. But if you didn't, the level was infinite. And I couldn't figure out why. I didn't know what to do. They told you, oh, something you got to use something to explode piece of the train or something, but my missiles didn't work. You don't always have a upgrade on your gun where there's an explosion. I didn't know what to do. I played that level for an hour and a half by itself. It was so annoying. And at this point, there was nothing online I could really look at. And I know you could, Truant Pixel's wonderful. You could email them, they would help you. But I wanted to figure it out myself, right? So it took me a long time to figure that out. And there were multiple times in the game where I felt like that. And that's not a good feeling. The best thing I could say, though, I will say, is that I mean, it never ceased to be fun. So the first playthrough took me over 3 hours to finish. It's a $15 game, so that's good. That's a good feedback and a value right there. And then I did a secondary playthrough where I played it all in one sitting. It took an hour and 10 minutes. So for that $15, it is a pretty good investment. And to move into my final case, And my final piece of evidence, it's all about fun, Alex. We play these games to have fun and to have memorable experiences. So the question is Runner fun? And I've got to say, all the evidence points to yes, baby. I could not get enough. Even with those things I mentioned that were somewhat infuriating, I was having a wonderful time and I never once considered quitting. You know, I don't like hard games. Most time I quit hard games. I'll be honest. But this, I never actually seriously considered quitting. I took a break, but I never quit because even replaying the same levels, it was so fun and immersive and unique that I was like, I'm fine with this. I'm just going to keep playing it. So, with the multiple sidearm gun upgrades, with the main cannon on your motorcycle, with the grenades, with the missiles, with the saber. There's different ways to spice up combat. Once you get good, you can pull one sidearm and you can shoot, waste all your bullets, put it down, let it recharge, use your left hand to shoot the other sidearm, or charge and pull out your saber, or start shooting missiles, or use your main cannon. Like, it allows you to really have freedom in how you play the game. And I noticed that when I went back and I was like, okay, I'm just going to play a level here, I played multiple levels. For our review on YouTube, I wanted to go and just get a few like 40-second clips so there could be gameplay playing in the background of the video. I never just played 40 seconds. I was like, I'll play one level, get some clips, and move on. I played 2 or 3 levels every time. I couldn't stop. In the middle of the day, I'm like, I'm just going to play one level of Runner. I've never done that with Gran Turismo 7. I've never been like, I want to do one race. No. Runner, I do it all the time. I love it. And that, I think, is a mark of a good game. You want to play it. It's fun. So, because of that, is Runner a worthy PSVR2 title for you to spend money on and for you to spend your time and your attention on? The Honorable Judge Adam finds you, Runner, guilty.
Oh, guilty verdict here. Okay, so Adam, you mentioned the sword. I tried playing this a little bit. I couldn't do anything with a sword. I like you. I kind of got confused.
It is difficult. The sword is difficult. Yes,
I got confused with the controls. I mean, the whole idea of the game is like it's drawing upon like Akira, that famous anime, where you ride the motorcycle, leaning with like the pipe or something like that. And I wanted to use the sword. I could just never make it happen. And then again, I could never figure out how to make the missiles work beyond the tutorial they showed me. I could barely get the grenades to work in the tutorial. I'm not going to try to figure that out when I'm blasting down the highway with that.
That's where, if they would have broken the demo up, like after the first level or midway through the first level, let you get used to just using the sidearms and then let you learn how to do the grenades. But instead, they showed you everything. I will admit the saber is very difficult to use.
Yeah, I think it's probably more for defense. I think because you can like knock bullets away with it or something.
Yeah.
But is there like a score attack mode or higher difficulties or something to make you keep playing after you've beaten it?
So there are score modes. So every time you run through, whether you do invincibility mode or standard mode, you do get a score. So it's based on time and if you die and how many enemies you kill, stuff like that. There are also motorcycles you can unlock. You can also customize your motorcycle. Now, primarily, this is just like aesthetic stuff. It's not like it's going to change the gameplay, but kind of cool. I made my motorcycle all black because I'm a G. Like, it's cool. So, and because it's so quick, I told you the reason I play Tetris so much is because, I have 20 minutes. What can I play in that short of time? Well, I could play Tetris. Now I can play Runner because that's all you need to get through one level.
Yeah. I mean, the little bit that I did play, I was playing it while waiting for something else to download, and I played a lot more than I expected to. I thought it'd be like a 5-minute session just to see what it's like. I was in there for an hour, just blast. I mean, even though the driving doesn't take much skill, right? You don't have a hard time taking turns. You don't have to control your speed much. It was still fun to just blast down the highway and shoot these robot guys coming out. They also released that free Runner preamble, which is like a visual novel. Did you play that at all?
I didn't. I wanted to, and once I started the gameplay, I was like, and maybe this is on me and I should care, but I was like, this is fun. I don't care what the plot is. You kind of got the main idea. Like, this person is transporting something. She doesn't know what it is. Her cohort is being mysterious about it. So it's probably there's some cahoots or some funny business going on. I'm not gonna,
Yeah, no
spoil
spoilers.
anything.
I want. Yeah.
Yeah. But so even without playing preamble, they did a good job at, or maybe just the plot is simple enough that's like, okay, I could get it. But I have not watched it. You did watch preamble though. Did did you find it engaging? Did you like it? Are you glad you did it, or would you rather just jumped in the game?
Well, it depends on how much plot there is in the actual game. It sounds like there is some decent plot. The story
It's not
is
a whole ton. I like
not a whole ton, but so preamble is a visual novel, right? So it's just you talking to people. You got to make the right choice, or it's game over. And it sets up an interesting premise for the game. The really cool thing is, I know you're not going to care about this, Adam, but if anybody's watched Cowboy Bebop, this voice actor for Spike Spiegel is the voice actor of the protagonist in preamble, and it's really cool to hear his voice. It's nice production values for this visual novel. It just works really well. Visual novels, for me, they can get boring because they're slow. This is really fast paced. Things happen quickly. If you fail something, it's easy to fast forward to exactly where you were. And yeah, it was interesting.
Oh wait,
It was
so it's an
engaging.
actual game?
It's an actual game. It's an hour long. It's free on like the Apple iStore, Apple iTunes. It's free on Android, and it's also free. I think if you get the game, it's free on PlayStation. So I just played it on PlayStation with the DualShock on like the TV.
Nice.
It's about an hour long, but it like as you can imagine, it's the preamble to Runner. So the story gets going, it gets up to this point, and then it stops, and it's like find out the rest when you play Runner, which kind of sucked because I wanted like something. Still felt a bit incomplete, like that jump from the preamble to Runner. I've played a bit of Runner. I don't know how that connects yet, but I guess I'll find out when I play more of Runner.
Yeah. See, you may convince me just to play it. Because I mean, again, the plot from what I noticed isn't anything like nuts. And it almost seems like it makes sense what you're saying because there's clearly I thought the plot was part of something bigger. And that thing was preamble. So
Yeah.
I knew that, and I knew there was a preamble when I played it. I just like I said, I enjoyed the gameplay. I wanted to beat it. I wanted to play it. Not just visual novels aren't really my thing. So that's it. I hope you continue to play it. I hope the listeners play it. I'm serious, and I want to hop into this a segue. I have played a lot of VR, and there are a lot of games that are very good, Alex. Resident Evil 8 is unforgettable. It's remarkable. Gran Turismo 7 is insanely impressive. It is so good. Kayak VR looks so incredible. But these games, I'm not having like fun, like actual fun. Even Demio, what we're coming up, when I personally played it, I think we're gonna review it next week officially, but I didn't necessarily have fun in it. Runner was the first PSVR2 title where I sat there and I was like, dude, I mean, I'm straight up having fun. So where do you draw the line, man? Like Resident Evil 8 is obviously it's the top of my list. It's gonna stay there. Runner isn't gonna move Resident Evil 8. But for example, let's talk about Resident or Gran Turismo 7. Obviously, Gran Turismo 7, more resources, more production value, but I have more fun in Runner. So how do you personally weigh those things? Not just because we're rating games and we're reviewing them, but like you as a gamer, how do you decide what you like and what you decide to play?
Yeah, it's a tough call. I mean, this is a weird thing with games because games are so technologically advanced now that you don't have to make a game just fun. Back in the day when games were early, they were arcade games. They had to be addictive, so they had to have that addictive gameplay loop. And it really the only way to get that addictive gameplay loop was to make it fun. Pac-Man had to be fun, and nobody dropped money in it to play it. Now games have such good technology that there are other things you can access, like Resident Evil. It's a very scary, immersive experience. Gran Turismo 7 gives you enjoyable experiences. It's not necessarily fun to do a license test, but it is like an exciting proposition to drive a Formula One race car around a racetrack, even if you don't have this like addictive urge to keep doing that over and over again. Even though you want to, it's a like ticks a different part of your brain. Runner very much feels like a VR version of an arcade game, of like a shoot 'em up game, and maybe that's why like all it has is fun, right? Like it's kind of immersive. It's got some cool technology in there going on, but it's not it's not trying to scare you. It's not trying to provoke emotions in you or something like that. I mean, games I love, like greatest games of all time, like Shadow of the Colossus. I love that game. It's such a good game. I enjoy it. I enjoy playing it. There's the visuals and the music and the story and stuff is really nice. But is that game just really fun to play? A lot of times it's frustrating to play, but I still love the game. So it's just, I think games can do so much now. And you are right. I mean, some games you play just to have fun. And in VR, it feels like so many people focus on the immersion or trying to get you scared. They're not really spending much time making sure that the gameplay loop is fun. And that's okay sometimes, but it is nice to have games that are just straight up fun to play. So I'm glad that Runner's here. I'm glad that you found it fun. I certainly think it would be fun. Or I certainly thought it was fun a little bit that I played, and I look forward to playing it more. But I don't know, like, you love Near Automata. Is Near Automata fun, or was it just like with the music and the story and the challenge that's what drives you?
I mean, I definitely had fun the first time I played Nier. I really liked the combat. It was a good strike between, it wasn't too difficult, but it was still like challenging. And then the other stuff just made it blown out of the water and just incredible. So that one I did, like Kingdom Hearts, I find fun. I know you hate it, but
I'm
like
not
the
allowed to talk about
combat,
that. Yeah.
yeah, the ways you can mix spells and like just all of the elements that go into it, I found pretty fun. And it was kind of lighter. I like games that are much faster paced. I don't like the games that are like Nier and Kingdom Hearts are in a way similar to where it's very dynamically you're running and you're attacking while you can run. So it's not just like it's not turn based. It's just very dynamic. And I think one reason why I like the Runner is that there wasn't freaking Demio where I had to learn or go through a 40-minute freaking demo to learn even how to play the basics of the game. It was like, boom, ho, you got two guns, shoot them down. And it was awesome. So I'm sure some of it is personal preference too. But yeah, I'm curious. What games have you played on the PSVR so far that you would say you had like fun?
Yeah.
Or
I mean,
maybe you consider like Gran Turismo 7, even though it's not like you're smiling and it's the best time of your life. Maybe you do consider that fun. And fun, obviously, is a subjective term potentially.
I think it's like two different types of fun, right? There's like the visceral fun, like Runner provides. Like it's, for lack of a better word, it's kind of simple, right? It's tapping into your lizard brain excitement, the thrill, the shooting, the explosions, the fast pace, the colors. But then there's like a more cerebral fun, which is like puzzle games, like Tetris or something, or Gran Turismo, where like, is it fun to find the right curve on a turn? Not necessarily. It doesn't sound fun, but when I'm doing it, I'm having a good time. When I'm testing things out, I'm having a good time. So I think that's kind of the line you're looking at. Is there's a lot of games that have this more like higher level, more cerebral, quote unquote, fun to it, and it doesn't seem like there's a lot of games yet that have this more engaging, visceral fun. But that's for example why I'm looking forward to playing Light Brigade. That looks like a game that's gonna kind of ride the line of both, where it's gonna have that visceral fun, like shoot 'em up action, but it's also maybe will have some of the more methodical, engaging, cerebral fun to it when you're having to strategize as well, like a mix of that. Because I mean, think about like chess versus something like
Chinese
tennis.
checkers.
Anyways, like
No, and that's not a racist term. It's a real game.
no. It's just Chinese checkers is like another game like chess where it's like a cerebral, slower pace. Like it's fun because you're having to think, but then something like tennis is fast paced and action packed, and there's stuff going on. That's a different kind of fun. So yeah, it's there's different ways to enjoy your time doing something, but you do make a good point. Like Just in Time Incorporated, I thought that was a fun game.
Yeah, that's a fun effing game.
It was just fun to play. Like it's not a world beater. It's just fun to play. You hop in, super hot to that extent. It's just a fun game to play. So yeah, it's
to the top. Point. Yeah, there are those games that they're great. I think we need to move. Where do I rate and rank Runner on our list? Goodness. So we have Resident Evil 8, Gran Turismo 7, Kayak VR Mirage, and Thumper. That's what we have official reviews on. Where do I find Runner? I had more fun than Gran Turismo 7 and Runner. But I can't do it, Alex. I'm sorry. I do think Runner is better than Kayak VR Mirage. Obviously, it doesn't look as good, but I mean, at some point, to me, the fun factor really does play big. Kayak VR is cool, but again, I didn't necessarily have fun. I don't feel the urge to go back to Kayak VR necessarily. Runner, I know I'm going to keep going back. They did some really cool things. And if nothing else, I really hope they showed that this gameplay element is wildly successful and incredibly fun. So I hope other developers look at what they did, realize the potential that that type of gameplay has, and will use it. So because of that, I think I'm going to put it third. I'm going to put it behind Gran Turismo 7, and I think that's a good spot for it. Do you agree, Alex? I mean, I know you've barely played the game, but do you have
I
any
mean,
qualms about me putting it there?
you reviewed it, so I can't judge your placement on this damned list. But no, I think that makes sense, right? Runner, just the little bit that I've played, it certainly seems like it's something I want to go back to, right? I'm gonna think fondly 3 years from now, and somebody's like, "What are games you got to play?" I'm probably gonna say like, "Hey, you should really try out Runner. It doesn't look like much. It's a really fun game. It's a really good game. That's one of those games I think you really should play. So
And
it makes
it's
sense.
going to end up going on sale. So
Yeah,
I mean, if
I
you
would.
don't, I mean, I recommend buying it at 15 because you don't know when it's going to go on sale. But at some point, like Vive went on sale. What was the other game they had? Truant Pixel, 2MD Football. That's been on sale. So they're cool with their games. It's going to go on sale at some point. But yeah. So boom, there we go. One review down. The next, I think we should just save. We're going to talk about in the next segment what games were most downloaded. Alex is going to talk about Tentacular, which I'm going to be interested to see where this lies on here. Alex, we've got a little time. Let's go ahead and let's just dive into it, dude. Very quickly. No, I want to talk about demos. I'm jumping all around. Demos
Okay.
will be a short discussion. Have you played any of the demos, Alex? Because there's like 7 or 8 on the PlayStation Store.
I've not played any of them. I have plenty of games to actually just play. I haven't spent much time with demos.
That is true.
You have you played any demos? Why are we
So
talking
I
about this? Okay.
Yes. So I did play Drums Rock, which you are going to review for us.
Yeah.
And I'll have to say, I was having a good time. I'm not going to lie. Like the drumming, even though it's in midair, it's kind of immersive. It's kind of cool. Like you could convince yourself, like, oh, I'm playing a drum. It's not realistic. So it's not like you actually are having this real life immersive experience of being in front of a crowd and drumming. Like it very much looks like a Guitar Hero, but drumming instead. For some reason, they went with the demon theme. And I know there's a couple of different areas, but there's a hard rock demon type theme. I don't
Yeah,
know
like the
why.
heavy metal motif. Yeah.
Yeah. The one thing I did notice, so there's only two songs on the demo. So the first song was it was a really well-known song. I'm gonna rock, maybe, or something. I don't remember. It
I
was a
want to
very
rock.
maybe. And like I even knew the song and I don't like music. So if I knew the song, it was very famous. And I had a good time. You could feel the rhythm and the beat. You could track with the song. It made playing the drums easier. The second song I've never heard of and it sucked, at least to me. It didn't have as much of a rhythm, so that made it harder because you could feel when you're drumming when there's in a game with a beat and it and it's a clear beat, but the second song didn't have that. So the first song I was like, whoa, I'm gonna buy this. The second song I was like, oof, I'm not gonna buy this. So it's a game that I feel, and it's not just this game, it was Guitar Hero, it was Rock Band, it's Beat Saber, it's Run Dorothy Run, it's all Audica, it's all these games, they all rest on what songs do you have in there and do you like the songs. So if you like rock music, you're probably going to really enjoy it. Alex, I don't know, you don't seem to be like a huge rock guy, but you also seem much more malleable in what you enjoy. So do you like rock music?
Yeah, I like rock music. I wouldn't say I'm malleable. I just have variety of taste. But the thing about these kind of games like Guitar Hero is feeling like you're playing the song makes you enjoy it more. It gives you a better chance to enjoy. So when I played Rock Band, there were songs I didn't care about that much, but then playing through it in Rock Band or Guitar Hero made me really appreciate the song more because I'm focusing more on the music that's happening because I'm taking part in playing it in some capacity. So, I mean, I like rock songs. I like popular rock songs that I've heard before. So I have a feeling I'll enjoy the set list to some degree, or at least a handful of songs. Um, so I'm looking forward to playing this for review. I'm really excited about it. I love the drumming in Rock Band, so I want to get more of that. The thing, getting back to the idea of demos though, is I have an issue with demos where since there's so many games to play, demos are like a bad thing for me because I can play a demo and be like, all right, I know what this experience is like. I got what I wanted out of this. I don't need to play anymore. And that happens to me with like
Oh,
big games all the time where I burn through the demo. If the demo's like an hour long, like we've said it before, the Resident Evil 7 demo, like that was good enough to be a whole game and just be like, all right,
yeah.
I'm good. Luckily, Resident Evil 7 is so good you want to play the rest of the stuff. But that's always a weird thing is that like these demos come out, you play it, you feel like you've gotten all the taste you need to decide like, yeah, I've had a full experience, I'm happy with where we're at, and I'll just move on to the next product. Does that happen to you?
I don't think that happens. It is dangerous though. So for example, I'm gonna buy puzzling places. I like jigsaw puzzles. I haven't bought it yet, but I was going to. Then I saw there's a demo. I haven't got to play it yet, but I'm going to play it. And so now weapon, if I don't like it, well, now they just lost money because they had a demo. And I was like, this actually didn't work in VR as well as I thought. There's Call of the Mountain. That's a demo. There's Resident Evil 8. That's a demo. There's a good list of demos on there. I
think
recommend
Tentacular has a demo.
Yeah, Tentacular has a demo. I like demos. I don't feel what you feel. I'm more of I although I mean drums rock may yeah, I don't think it's like I experienced drums rock. I was just like, okay, I'm not gonna like this because I don't like rock music. So I don't know if it's the same reasoning as you have, but it prevented probably me from purchasing it. But there's also games that certainly there's going to be that I play and then I do purchase because I was like, wow, that intrigued me. And you want more of that experience. Like with that kitchen demo or the Resident Evil 7 one, after I was like, this is the demo, what could the game be like? That's my thinking. And that's just because you're narrow minded and I have a much more stimulated mind compared to you.
Well, speaking of stimulation, I'm going to be stimulating with tentacles here in the next segment, Adam. So, yeah, thanks for listening. Stick around for segment 2 where we review Tentacular for the PSVR2. Welcome back to Play PSVR 2, the podcast, segment 2, and gaming is in session. People of the Honorable Court on the docket is the case of Tentacular, developed by Fire Punched and published by Devolver Digital. The charges for Tentacular are as follows. 1 count of not being just a quest port, 1 count of brevity and clunk, and 1 count of variety and public pleasure. The prosecution takes the floor. Thank you, Gaming Court, the esteemed Gaming Court, and your honor, Adam. When one first sees Tentacular amongst the sea of PSVR 2 launch titles, one can't help but compare it with our previous defendants, games like Gran Turismo 7, Resident Evil 8, and think, what is this doing here? We're all here in this court today to witness the next generation of PSVR 2 and the next generation of VR in general, yet Fire Punch Games has delivered us a game that has been out on PC and out on the Quest for nearly a year now. And while the reception of Tentacular has been warm in the past, many of you question its legitimacy in existing on the PSVR 2. I'm here today to tell you that it indeed deserves its position in the PSVR 2 library as a PSVR 2 launch title, and not just a late blossoming port. So, Tentacular is a game where you exist in this otherworldly body. You're a monster with tentacles, a giant squid, and you're earning your place in society. Vital to your existence as an outsider, you perform tasks for the residents of the island of La Calma to prove yourself as a citizen in this only place you've ever called home. In one scene, you're stacking and balancing shipping containers, and in another, you're assisting a professor with scientific experiments by testing out new magnetic technologies. While doing so, you'll notice a visual clarity in the environment that's consistent and charming, even if not photorealistic or next-gen feeling. While not particularly dazzling, the island of La Calma is bustling with activity. Each environment is interesting, and they're fun to exist in, fun to play with. And, you have things like people to talk to. You have cars to pick up and throw around. You have shipping containers to stack. You have various doodads around that you can interact with. There's even hidden dogs that you got to try to find and pet. It's fun to seek those guys out when you hear them growling. But along with that rock-solid performance comes the precision provided by the PSVR Sense controller. So I don't know if it's the game, if it's the controller, the technology, but That alongside the room scale environment, you'll be able to walk around these environments to interact with it, or you can use the analog stick if you want to. So comfort is paramount. You can play the game sitting, you can play the game standing, you can kind of do what you want to do, how you want to do it. So what initially seems just like a block stacking mini game collection turns into more of like a physics sandbox game. So where you get new tools and you constantly have new features that you're unlocking and playing with as you're moving around these environments. So you get much more than you'd initially think from just this physics engine. You get rockets to launch, you get slingshots, you're building bridges, you're throwing astronauts into the sky, all sorts of fun stuff happening, and you're doing it all with little suckers along your tentacle arms. The gameplay is really enhanced by the addition of the haptic triggers. So a game all about picking things up. The haptic triggers allow you to, everything feels slightly different. Everything has a texture to it when you grab it, which makes the gameplay more engaging. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the eye tracking and the spectacular ease with which it is utilized. It's not a graphically impressive game, but I love the fact that when you need to talk to somebody or interact with a menu, eye tracking takes the lead here, and you are naturally talking to people just by looking at them and hitting the O button. And that's an enhancement that the other options, the other systems don't have. So, on the charge of not being just a quest port, I find Tentacular guilty.
So, Alex, I'm curious and I have a feeling I already know the answer. What PSVR2 technology was implemented that the Quest doesn't have? Which one was implemented the best, or do you think meant most to the gameplay and enjoyment of this game?
This sounds silly. I think the eye tracking, although really the only utilization I felt was looking at a character to talk to them. I glance at a character, the O button pops up in front of them, I hit O, and we start talking. The way to do that without eye tracking is you have to reach out and tap them on top of the head, which is a nice gameplay mechanic, but it would be very frustrating, especially if people are all grouped together and you have a hard time finding the right one, or your tentacles can get pretty big, getting that precision there, and it'd just be kind of tiring to constantly be reaching out and hitting the button to get them to talk. Just looking at them and hitting the button feels so nice, especially when you have more than one character to interact with. It's not the sexiest, but man, it just took all the frustration away that I was initially feeling before I had that turned on, or before they gave that to me in the initial setup of the game.
Yeah, I'm a fan of eye tracking. Glad they used it. Let's move to the next charge.
All right. On the second charge, we have a charge of brevity and clunk. So I must point to the game's overall playtime. I spent around 4 or 5 hours playing through Tentacular, which comprises the majority of the game's mainline story. However, there are side missions for those particularly interested in testing their skill and dexterity, and a playground or a sandbox within which one can create their own tests and environments using the new tools such as balance magnets, rockets, slingshots, all these things that you get unlocked in the main game. You have a place you can go and just try out new things, experiment, build new things, and make whatever you want to make. The side quests, I didn't dive into too much. Initially, I kind of got frustrated because there were some missions I didn't really enjoy, and I thought I had to continue doing these things that I didn't really enjoy. But once I realized there weren't side quests, I was like, oh, let's just go through the main story. And I had a much better time. Things were more enjoyable, more engaging. But like things like the sandbox mode and stuff, they're limited by the player's own creativity. So like if you don't want to build something, if you don't want to sit around and think about something fun to do, it's not going to offer too much to you. But I thought, the length of the main campaign, 4 to 5 hours, the variety of each mission, the main campaign missions were different enough that I felt like I got my money's worth. I paid for this game $25. It's kind of a high price tag for this kind of game, but 5 hours is a good amount. I saw a lot, I did a lot, and I didn't feel like I was, robbed of a good experience for the price of what I paid. And, the story, it's a bit heavy-handed in some of its moral, morally it's a bit heavy-handed. There's some obvious allusions to real people that are very apparent, and they take a hard stance against those people. Nothing, too controversial, but it's there, and if you're not on board with that, then that could be something that bothers somebody. It didn't really bother me too much, but it was just kind of funny that it kept popping up, and it kept being such an important part of the game's story. I thought it was a bit off-putting at times. And then, aside from its length, that might be short for some people. There were times when I would get a bit of clunky stuff happening. You have these tentacles, there's a lot of stuff going on, there's physics interactions going on, and you do have these long arms. Sometimes they would get caught. Sometimes objects would get caught. There'd be a little of that physics jiggle that happens with stuff. There was one time where my tentacle got stuck inside of something and I couldn't pull it out and I couldn't do anything. And I wasn't hitting the button to grab the object. It was just stuck in between two objects and I couldn't yank it out. And that was really frustrating. Or sometimes that would happen and my arms would glitch and just knock something flying across the map. And it's something I needed. And I'd have to wait for it to fall down in a parachute so I could grab it again. So some of those things are kind of frustrating. And it just made, some of these missions a bit more difficult because it just felt kind of clunky overall. I mean, the challenge of the game is performing delicate tasks with these tentacles rather than hands. So I understand that I'm not supposed to feel the precision that I would if I was a surgeon with hands or something. But because you have tentacles, you don't have wrists, right? So some things that you're doing, like holding a slingshot, feel kind of funny. You don't know what orientation to get your hand in to grab it so that it feels like you're holding a slingshot and firing something with the other tentacle. A lot of times I'm holding two tentacles up and rotating objects slowly around in my hands just to get the right angle on how I'm holding it. But none of these were game breaking. It's just sometimes I could feel a little bit of frustration building as I was doing something. Luckily, they have a great mechanic where there's a guy almost behind you in every single mission named, I forget his full name, but it's something Rossetti. You can reset the map if you want to really easily, or you can talk to him and he'll give you a hint. He's like, hey, here's what you got to do. And if you ask him again, he's like, I'm going to draw you a picture of what you have to do. And that basically kept me from ever getting to a situation where I was like, I'm just so mad, I don't know what to do next. He would just do things for you. There was even one mission that was pretty delicate. You have to build like a rocket with a lot of components. And he's like, hey, that can be rough. You want me to just build it for you so you can do the next part? And I said no, but I was really glad that was there. So if I did start to get angry, I could just say, yeah, do this for me and let me move on. So all that being said, on the charge of brevity and clunk, I find Tentacular guilty.
So I have three quick questions, Alex. I want these to be quick. First, I've played a lot of games that tend to linger. They last longer than really they should. Do you think Tentacular suffers from this?
Absolutely not. I like the length, but I know a lot of people want more than 4 and 5 hours in a game. But it certainly does not overstay its welcome. When it's done, you're like, yeah, that was a good amount. That's what I wanted to do here.
Is Donald Trump in the game?
He is not, but it's somebody.
No, that's a shocker. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah. I thought that's what you were talking about.
There might be somebody like him. I don't recall.
Yeah, okay,
I don't
fair
recall
enough.
Encountering him.
So we interviewed the developers, Fire Punch Games, on the podcast, and at some point they were telling us that near the end of the game there was some event where like the head rumble really played a big part. They were just talking about some of the implementation. Looking back after finishing the game, do you know what they were talking about? And could you just mention like how head rumble was used or maybe haptic feedback?
Yeah, I mean, so haptic feedback is good for the controllers of picking up stuff, throwing it, things like that. Really, the only time I recall feeling head rumble, and of course it's a subtle effect. There's a lot of games I don't notice it in, but it's nice to have. It wasn't ever like I'm so glad I had head rumble right there. But there are, early on in the game, there's like these crystals that if you touch them, it's like toxic, and it's the headset rumbles, the control, it's a whole body like shaking, like, don't do that. So I would say the headset rumble is, a really good device there to let you know you shouldn't be doing what you just did. It really sets the doom in for what just happened. But it's nothing like, it's not happening a lot. It's just in those cases. I even threw something in my own head to see if my headset would rumble, and it didn't work. But I think there might have been a case where somebody threw something at me or I got hit with something, and it did work. So it's subtle effect, but I appreciated it when it occurred.
Nice. Let's move to the last charge.
All right. Our final charge, 1 count of first-degree variety and public pleasure. Tentacular never becomes really dull in its gameplay. So it looks like a one-note song when you watch the demos. You're picking stuff up and stacking things, but there's enough variety. Things are always changing that you never see like you're doing the same thing twice unless you go into these side missions. So many games will dwell on a mechanic to lengthen the playtime, right? You say, you have this new tool. Let's do 10 levels of that new tool so that we can make this game a longer game. Tentacular is always bringing in a new tool. Anytime you start a mission, somebody says, hey, I have this new thing I want you to try. A new challenge to do. There's a new goal to this mission that you have. So boredom really never creeps in. You spend enough time with these new devices to really make it feel like you're learning it. You get to see how it works initially, test the limits of it, and then do something fun with it. So it's like, at most, you're going to do the same thing for 3 little missions in a row. That gameplay variety, along with the undeniably enjoyable soundtrack. When the music kicks in, I'm always excited. It's not always running, but when it kicks in, it's always at a great time. And I'm just like, yes, I'm grooving. I'm loving this. I'm feeling this. And then the overall humorous tone. It's a silly game. And they keep that silliness going, even though, again, there's a bit of a heavy-handed joking going on with a particular character. in the end, Tentacular does a great job of putting you in a good mood and keeping you there. So although you get little bits of frustration here and there with that clunk that I mentioned, you're going to walk away having had a good time with Tentacular. And each level comes with a little guy who's ready to give you hints if you get stuck. So I mentioned that. That keeps the frustration low and to a minimum. And I really appreciated having the guy there. I could always talk to him. They're always making little noises in the background, and hearing the little chatter from the characters is always fun to hear. So it just gives you a good time as you're playing it. So for the charge of variety and public pleasure, I find Tentacular guilty.
So my last cross-examination lies in the fact there are many games like Job Simulator, like Cosmonius High, that I admit I have not played Tentacular, but they look in similar vein to one another. So what makes Tentacular different from these other games that look similar to it?
I think so. Like Job, I haven't played Cosmonius High. Job Simulator, Vacation Simulator. Yeah, they seem similar because it's mainly you standing in a place, interacting with things around you. Whereas Job Simulator is like, oh, let's play with a copy machine. Let's play with this thing here. It's less about like, oh, a new physics tool that you can play with and building something. And Job Simulator is not that. Tentacular is more about like, oh, here's a fun new object. Let's play with that and see how that integrates with all the stuff that I had before. Here's a new type of magnet. Here's a new spinny thing. Here's a new rocket. How does that interact with what I've been using before? So I mean, they're probably in the same genre of just like, VR games, what you expect a lot of VR games to be like. But I do think there's a difference where Job Simulator is like, do a bunch of small minor stuff. Tentacular is constantly building on itself to add more to the equation.
Final verdict.
Overall, for the case of Tentacular as a game you should buy, the jury finds you. Oh my God, Adam! It's a first for Play PSVR2. The gaming court. This is a hung jury.
It's a hung jury.
It's a hung jury. Oh man! So here, I do want to give a caveat here. I really enjoyed Tentacular, but I know that it's not a game for everyone. It's short. If you're not looking for a VR type game that you've played before. That's as you mentioned, Job Simulator, Cosmonius High. There's a lot of games out there that do similar kind of things. Maybe that's not as exciting for you. And $25 is a steep price. I'm sure it's going to go on sale at some point. But I have a rough time recommending it to everybody. That being said, I've really had a good time with it. Initially, when I was getting stuck in the weeds with side quests and getting frustrated, like I really don't want to do this over and over again. That got a bit, that made me frustrated and bored. But then once I realized, oh, let's go through and progress things that are happening, progress the gameplay, I had a much better time with the game, and I got to see more of the story, which was, nothing huge, but it was just charming and fun to follow along with. Yeah, so like I said, I like the game. People like me are probably going to like the game. You have young kids or people that are new to VR, they're going to like the game. But if you've played a lot of VR games, it's probably not going to be something that you're going to be super excited about. That's why it's a hung jury.
So we talked, the games I like. I was talking about Runner. I like short explanations and high action. Is this something you think I might like? Possibly, why not? I'm on the fence. I may buy it just because I like the guys. I want to certainly support them, but what should I expect? Or what would you anticipate my reaction to this being?
I think it's a game that you might enjoy if it was on sale, but you're a guy who does not get won over by charm, and this game does win you over with charm. As I mentioned, the heavy-handed, moral stuff that gets brought up. I mean, it's not integral to the gameplay. You can breeze through all that discussion and stuff. That would probably annoy you. Didn't really annoy me too much. There's a lot of time where you're talking and listening to people that seems to be happening. If you're following the story, there's a lot of discussion going on. So it's not like you're just like in there, bam, doing stuff. The one thing that makes me think you would like it is you're a guy that does like the sandbox type stuff. Like Discovery is a game that I'm never going to play, that Minecraft clone on PSVR. You like that. Built a Hippo, had a good time. You'd probably have fun building weird rockets and launching them in the sky, throwing things around.
Can you make one look like a phallic object?
I accidentally did that like the very first time.
Oh, accidentally, subliminally, and we know what you're
thinking about.
They
were like setting these things up, and I was like, okay, here goes one here, here goes one here, here goes one here. I just made a penis.
Story of my life. Okay, that's good. So the last really thing we need to talk about is where do we put this on our Play PSVR ranking? Because we just added Runner, where we got 6. No, we got 5. Someone's going to get knocked out of the top 5. The question is, who's it going to be? You're the reviewer. You get to make the pick. To walk me through what you're thinking.
Really, it's a tough call right now. This sounds bad, but it's only because we haven't reviewed that many games. It's a choice of what goes on top, Thumper or Tentacular. Which one's going to be at the bottom of the list? And I want to give. I really like Thumper, but it's been out for a long time. This isn't that new of a game, right? It's great and it's fun. Tentacular is something new, and it does use the haptics in a really good way. It uses the headset, and it leverages some of that technology in a new way. So I think I have to put it above Thumper, below Kayak VR Mirage, just based on your enthusiasm for Kayak. It's going to be here at number 6, I believe, on the list. Is going to be Tentacular.
Fair enough. All right, there we go. We got our first 6 games. Very, very exciting. We're going to keep this going through the entirety of the podcast. This is going to be, we may get all the way down to game 69. I actually very guarantee you we will. So talking about more games, Alex, there was a post about the most downloaded games in February, which, I mean, granted, PSVR2 has only been out for that month. But were you surprised? I want to hear your reaction to Kayak VR Mirage being number 1, Pavlov being number 2, Horizon Call of the Mountain, Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge, Pistol Whip, Moss Book 2, Swordsman VR, Drums Rock, NFL Pro Era, and The Light Brigade. Those were the top 10, noting that Gran Turismo 7 and Resident Evil 8 were excluded from this list.
Yeah, I mean, this was a surprising list for me. I mean, of course, once you know Resident Evil 8 was high on just the PlayStation Store list. Gran Turismo 7 was also like number 11 of the top games for PS5 in general. That leads me to believe a lot of people bought those games for PSVR because those are old games.
Yeah.
So, congrats to PSVR 2. People are buying these games because of PSVR 2. But Kayak VR Mirage being at the top, that was a big surprise to me. I can see Pavlov being up there. Everybody's hyped about Pavlov. Kayak being the number 1 game outside of these heavy hitters is a pretty big surprise. I mean, it had a lot of hype. A lot of people were talking about it, but it didn't seem like a game that would, sorry, pun intended kind of, didn't seem like a game that's going to float everybody's boat. But it seems like it's getting a lot of traction and everybody really enjoys it. There were a couple of glowing reviews that came out at launch, and I think that probably pushed it over the finish line there. Horizon probably would have been higher, but it wasn't included. The pack-in downloads weren't included as part of this. So this is people purchasing it separately from the bundle, which makes me think that that's kind of an interesting thing. That you'd think if somebody was going to buy Horizon, they would have just gotten it in the bundle. But people have bought the PSVR 2 headset and then said, oh, I'm going to go buy Horizon now, which seemed odd to me. Star Wars being a really high one is odd to me. I guess, people, what's it called? Intellectual property sells. The branding sells. People are buying this because it says Star Wars, not because they know much about the game. Might be a fine game. Doesn't have the greatest reviews. Haven't heard the best things about it, but it might be good. The rest of them, not too huge surprises. I expected Pistol Whip to be up there. I didn't expect Drums Rock to be up there. I didn't expect Light Brigade to be in the top 10, so that's good. But it had a really good push here right before launch where the developers really engaged people on Reddit and Twitter and Discord and stuff like that and they really sold the game in the final stretch after that, I'm going to put it frankly, abysmal announcement of the game. They really showed what the game was and made it look like something enjoyable. So this is a pretty good list. Is there anything missing that you think, like, why is that not on the list? NFL Pro Air is the one that I'm like, I didn't really think that would be a big seller. Is there anything that you think should be on the list that didn't make it?
Yeah, it's tough. I agree. I'm very shocked Kayak VR is number 1. I'm actually blown away. And I know I was favorable in my review, and I still am. I stand by what I said, but it's a game that I'm personally never going to go back to unless I'm showing someone. So I still kept it downloaded. I didn't delete it. I don't dislike it, but I mean, it's just kayaking. Like, there's no action there. It's somewhat one note. Like, I don't understand. I know it's graphically beautiful. Maybe that's what people see. I don't know. I was blown away. There's no action. I just, I cannot fathom why all these people are downloading this. I don't know. Horizon, I still say I could see it at 3, especially like you said, it wasn't including the pack ins. And for example, for me, I wasn't on board, and then the reviews come out, and people are like, "Oh, it's better than I thought. It's like my favorite game." So then that could convince a lot of us. The demo has come out, so maybe that convinced some people. Maybe dropping at one time. What was it? 6? I forgot. What was your bundle cost?
I mean, the game itself costs like $60. It's like the most expensive game you can get for the PSVR
Yeah.
2.
So it's $60 more. So maybe spending $600 for the PSVR 2 in one go is just too much. So if you break it up over, a few weeks, 60 you can pay. I don't know. It's somewhat intriguing. Star Wars, I haven't played the game, but I've seen it. I've seen what it is. It sucks. Okay. I don't know why people are buying that. And I feel like it's also pretty expensive if I remember correctly. Don't get it, but whatever, you're right. Everyone, if you like Star Wars, I guess that's what you're going to do. I'm surprised. I don't know. After number 4, a lot of these games just seem like okay titles. Like nothing is exciting. Like I know all these are very good. I am impressed Drums Rock is up there. But again, I feel like we even talked about it before we knew these were coming live, in that a musical game like a Guitar Hero in VR is the perfect mix and match. I can't believe it hasn't been done before. So playing drums, people think is really cool. It's rock music. It's in VR. I could see that being there. I'll be curious to see if they're still happy with their purchase. Like I said, it seemed like something that was like an okay game. Again, I just played the demo. I think some of the big things missing here is one, Demio.
Mhm.
Everyone I know who plays Demio loves it and will like stand in the corner and they'll fight you to the death for it. So I'm surprised with all the good reviews, all the good press, that isn't on the list. I have to think about Song in the Smoke as well, because again, it's won a ton of awards. They have really good press. All their reviews have been very good in their PSVR 2 implementation and things of that nature. Then there's like little things like I'm almost surprised that like a Tetris effect didn't make it in there, like a cheap little add-on. A bunch of people play Tetris, a bunch of people still play VR Tetris. So
Maybe this isn't tracking like upgrades being sold. Because I agree. I feel like Res and Tetris Effect would have been like easy top 10 things, but I'm guessing they just don't track upgraded games in
I
this
don't think
list.
Res would have been, but I would have guessed maybe Tetris. Uh I don't know. So yeah, it was an intriguing list. It is what it is. I hope to see. I mean, some of the games that are coming up that I think are going to take over. I think Switchback is going to be number 1 very soon. Once it releases, I think Before Your Eyes, that's probably going to be up there. I think it's gone live today. I pre-ordered it, going to play it over the weekend. But it's also curious that like I was curious about Townsman VR. Like what's the reception to that? And aside from watching a review, well, it looks like not many people, or it's at least not in the top 10. Now, granted, again, how many we counted, 30, 40 games for launch. So it's not like there's 15 games, and if you didn't make it in the top 10, you suck. There's just so many games. But yeah, I I would have guessed Pavlov to be number 1, to be honest. I'm very surprised that it's not. I wish they would give us numbers, like,
Yeah.
oh, 1 million people downloaded Kayak, which I know that's way too high, but I'm curious. I don't know.
I mean, I do think that probably like, looking at the top 5, there's probably like some big numbers. I bet as you get near the bottom, like 8, 9, and 10, it's probably very, very little separating those rankings. And then I bet once you get out of the top 10, it's probably anybody's game to see what would be in that number 10 spot, because What the Bat, Fantavision, these are games that people know about and they're excited about. I mean, we really liked Runner. I understand why that didn't sell too much because it didn't get much buzz, but that's a really fun game, and I would think that NFL Pro Era is broken from what I heard. So you'd think a game that actually worked like Runner might be able to get up there on the
Yeah, I
list.
mean, I would put Runner over Pavlov. Is tough. Pavlov probably beats it. I haven't played Call of the Mountain. That very well could beat it. Probably does. The other games, I think Runner is as good or better than them. So yeah, it's surprising that now again, would I have guessed that before I played Runner?
Right.
Probably not, right? Like that's the beauty of finding that hidden gem. You don't know. Other people don't know, and that's why people listen to people like us.
Is Runner getting the Cold Iron Award for Game of the Year in March of 2023?
Except that I already said Resident Evil 8 was better. Like,
but that was released last year, so there you go. You have
oh
your window.
baby,
You have your opportunity.
and so was Gran Turismo 7.
Mm-hmm.
There it is. Congratulations.
Runner
2023
Game of the Year.
That's so exciting. That is awesome. Alex, you found, I want some details on this because I have heard people being afraid of the Collective Minds charging display stand because I've never heard this with other VR headsets, but that, oh, it's going to burn the controller or it's going to ruin it in some way. You found something where it says the VR2 controller charging station just burned my VR controller. Give us some background.
This is a top post on Reddit. Somebody said, "Hey, the official Sony VR controller docking station just burned through my controller." They had screenshots of burn marks on the controller, and that was scary for me. That's the whole reason I went with the official one, was so that I didn't have this happen. I think the guy got a free replacement, thankfully. But then after people dove in, it seemed like the issue was that because it's magnetic, if you get a little bit of dirt and grime on there for somehow, it kind of blocks that full connection, and it just causes the circuit to run. So little warning to everybody, make sure those magnetic connections are clean before you dock your controller in there. I'm sure the Collective Minds one has a similar issue, that it just dirt and grime gets in there. One person said that they sweat a whole lot when they play the games, and if a lot of sweat gets in there and then maybe it dries up, you have some like salty residue from your sweat, that could cause like an incomplete connection of the magnets that still allows a circuit to run through and just burn up that circuit. So be careful, wipe these things down if you get real sweaty, don't sling them in the mud. But yeah, it was just kind of scary, and it was a top story here recently. So I just wanted to mention that.
I guess I need to look at the picture. Does it totally ruin it? Like, does it catch on fire, or it just kind of like internally burns it up? Like you have batteries in the wrong way and they just get hot and some stuff is melted.
I mean, it does like char marks on the charging port of this DualSense controller. I think their DualSense controller didn't work anymore, or they wouldn't be able to recharge it again when the battery died.
Yeah.
So it effectively didn't work. Also, it just sounds hazardous, right? If you're charging it and it burns up, you don't want to burn your house down when you're charging it while you're away from home. I just thought I'd mention that. We have some other bits of news we'll burn through here quickly. A new PS5 update came out. With that, we have the ability to update our controllers wirelessly, so we don't have to plug them in with a USB controller anymore. That's a nice thing. I used to hate when I'd have a DualSense update on my PS5 and I'd have to find my USB cable and plug it in. So that's fixed. However, people have reported their eye tracking works better and that the visual clarity is better. Namely, Adam, you complained about Gran Turismo 7 having blurry text on the sides of the flat screen like it's in the menu.
Mm-hmm.
People have reported that that's gone away now after the update.
Oh,
now,
baby.
This guy did say he readjusted his headset a little bit. He put it back on, went through that initial tutorial again, putting the headset on and doing the eye tracking. And he said now the whole screen is clear. It's like the eye tracking suddenly works for him. So when he looks around the menu without moving his head, everything is clear now. So I'm going to dive into Gran Turismo 7 after we record here, see if with the update that's been fixed. I might try to recalibrate my headset. But just a note to people that might have had issues with blur at the edges of their screen, it might be resolved now. So take another look.
Yeah, that I need to hop back in. I get it. It wasn't game breaking or anything, but it was just something I clearly noticed. I already made these updates to the controllers, to the system. So I'm going to be curious to hop back in there and give it a shot. Talk to me about Aces of Thunder, the announcement trailer.
So we've heard a lot of supposedly Project Wingman's coming out. We haven't had an official announcement. This is an official announcement of a dogfighting, flying, air combat game. Aces of Thunder, it's like World War II planes. So propeller planes, none of this, super fast, breaking the sound barrier jets, but like dogfighting and World War II type stuff. Propellers, a bit slower paced. I watched the trailer. It looked awesome. The visuals looked great. It's VR, airplanes flying around, semi-realistic. I'm super excited about this. They didn't give us a launch date, but I imagine it's coming soon since they announced it. I'm just really excited. Adam, you didn't care about Ace Combat that much. Are you happy to hop in on something like this?
I mean, I'll try it with the new technology, but I mean, if I
It's
didn't
got
like Ace
multiplayer.
Combat, I feel like that, according to you and according to other people, that was a really great experience. And if that didn't jumble my Rockies or whatever you want to call it, then I'm scared, you know. I just
I
maybe
think
being in air isn't my thing. I don't know.
I think the difference is this since this is World War II planes, it's a bit more rickety feeling, and the cockpit is a bit more present. Whereas in Ace Combat, you're just like looking at this like digital HUD that's moving around as you're flying around. This, you're in the airplane. Your crosshair is part of the airplane. I'm sure there's some HUD like heads up display elements and stuff like that, but I feel like there's going to be a bit more presence here, and also it's going to be a bit slower paced, make things feel a bit more fraught, a bit more tense, and maybe be a bit more thrilling as a result.
Yeah. Next, we've got Galaxy Kart has gone gold, baby. So I can't find an actual release date for this, but obviously it must be soon. And so a game looks like it could be pretty fun. Looks like a clone almost of Mario Kart. I think it'll be curious. I think it's going to be really fun because of, like I said, Runner, where you're focused on the road, but then you use a hand to throw some of the weapons or sidetrack the other enemies and other players. So I think it could be really cool. And you told me specifically, don't look up this dev team for some reason. So I quit looking. Do you have something that you want to bring to my attention?
I will just say I'm excited about another racing game in VR. Adam, you didn't like Gran Turismo because it was too simulation. I thought you might like a kart racing game. It's more arcadey kart stuff, and I do love the idea of playing a kart racer where instead of hitting a button to launch an item, I grab the item and throw it. That would be really fun. So I'm looking forward to seeing what this is like. However, Adam, temper your expectations. I'm going to read off 3 games, and I want you to tell me how you feel about the prospects of Galaxy Kart VR after I read these 3 games that these developers have made.
Is it Rat Loop? No, that's Rat Loop Games. That's not. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Apocalypse Rider,
Oh.
The Rabbit Hole,
Oh.
and Viking Days.
Could you have picked a worse 3? Because it's one thing like special delivery, 18 floors. Like those developers had one huge diarrhea dump in our mouths and they were done. But this, they dropped 3 turds. So that is, oh, Alex, that's like those 3 games. It's not like, oh, okay, maybe subjectively, like you may find them bad if you don't like this particular type of game. Like they are all bad. This game doesn't look that bad though. Like you can look at Viking Days and be like, yeah, that game's gonna suck. You don't look at the trailer and say that for this, right? Or am I wrong?
So here's the thing. I'm getting confused because I go to their actual website and they have other games that are good. They have games like Drunken Bar Fight, which is clunky as all hell, but
Dude, yeah, but
that
was a fun game too. Yeah.
They had their hand in Yuki. I don't know how much they were involved. They ported that to the PSVR, so they didn't make that game, but they ported it. And that's a good game. They didn't design it, but they ported it. Let's look at Viking Days. They made Viking Days. They made Apocalypse Rider. They made The Rabbit Hole. Looks like they ported Synth Riders. They ported In Space. They ported Exorcist Legion VR. So, in terms of games that they developed, it's not a great track record, but they do have experience with some good games. Who knows? Maybe they have the technology in the PSVR2 to actually make a really, really fun game now. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm just tempering my expectations. This might not be the kart racer we're all waiting for.
Oh, bummer. Listen, court is in session, and on 2 counts of this being a great episode, Alex, I find us guilty. That's right. And on 69 counts of Alex having one hot mama, I find you guilty. And on 5 counts of you, that's right, you, the one listening, going on iTunes or Spotify or playpsvr.com or YouTube or Twitter and connecting with us, subscribing to us, I find you, well, you better be guilty. Thank you for listening to Play PSVR 2, the podcast, where virtual reality is our reality. Blammo!